The vase wasn't just expensive, it was irreplaceable. Not because of the price tag, though, yeah, it wasn't cheap, but because it was my mom's last gift before she passed. Hand-blown glass, sea green with swirls of gold. I kept it on the shelf behind the couch, out of the way, out of danger. And then he knocked it over. He laughed. Laughed. She laughed too. Said, "It's just a vase, babe." Except I wasn't laughing. I wasn't even blinking. I stared at the shards on the floor, at the way he kicked a piece under the couch with his shoe like it didn't matter, like I didn't matter, and waited for her to say something. Anything. But she didn't. She just poured him another glass of wine and told him to relax, that I was overly sentimental about random junk. Random junk. You ever feel like you're watching your life from behind glass? Like your voice doesn't carry anymore? I stood there in the living room, surrounded by people who were supposed to know me, and realized I was the only one grieving. Not just the vase. Something else. Something bigger. I just didn't know what yet. It took exactly 3 hours and 17 minutes for me to get the full answer. That's when I found the group chat. That's when I saw the photo. That's when I realized the vase wasn't the only thing being shattered in this house. The moment the vase hit the floor, everything else went quiet. Not in the room. There was still music playing, still wine being poured, still her laughter, but inside me, something turned off. Like a fuse blew, and suddenly I was just standing there, frozen, trying to understand what the hell just happened. It had been sitting safely on the back shelf for years. Sea green with gold spirals, shaped like a teardrop, delicate and oddly beautiful. My mother gave it to me the year before she passed, and it was the one object in the house I asked people not to touch. But apparently that didn't apply to Eli, my wife's coworker. He was drunk. He was dancing. He was trying to show off some ridiculous spin move while holding a glass of sangria. His elbow swung wide, hit the edge of the shelf, and down the vase went like slow-motion glass rain. It didn't just break. It exploded. Pieces flew under the furniture. A shard skidded across the hardwood and tapped my shoe. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. Loud, cocky, casual. "Oops," he said with a shrug. That looked expensive. My eyes went to Rachel, my wife, hoping for something. Shock. Regret. A gasp. An apology. Anything. But she just smiled at him, tilted her head, and said, "It's just a vase. Clay's sentimental about weird things." I couldn't believe it. I waited for her to catch herself. She didn't. She topped off his drink like he hadn't just demolished the last thing in the house that meant something personal to me. I said her name once, quiet. She ignored it. He made another joke, something about how I should have glued it down. That was the moment something in me cracked. It wasn't rage. It was grief, I think. But not just for the vase. For what it all meant. I left the living room. No scene. No yelling. I just walked into the kitchen and leaned on the counter with both palms down, trying to breathe through it. My heart was pounding in my ears. I felt like a ghost in my own house. Unseen, disrespected, small. They stayed in the other room. Laughing. I heard the speaker change songs. I heard the cork pop again. 15 minutes passed. Maybe 20. I wasn't timing it, but it felt like an eternity. I came back out when the silence finally hit. Eli had gone. Rachel was picking up glasses, moving lazily, humming. She saw me and said, "You're being dramatic, you know." I just stared at her. That vase was the last thing my mother gave me before she died. She blinked. "You told me that like 5 times. I didn't know you were going to treat it like some sacred urn." That was it. That was her response. So I went upstairs without another word and shut the door. Now here's where things get weird. Around midnight, I couldn't sleep. I went down to get some water. Her laptop was open on the dining table, still logged into her work Slack. I didn't touch it, but when I walked past, the screen blinked and I caught a name. #pitch_war_. And a message. Eli. LMAO, he looked like he was going to cry. "You sure he's not fragile in other ways too?" Faced with tears of joy. That's when I stopped breathing. Right below that, her reply. "Rachel. LOL. He'll get over it. He always does." I don't know how long I stood there, just staring at it. The screen dimmed again, but I didn't need to keep reading. I'd seen enough. That vase wasn't just glass. It was a test. A symbol. And I finally had my answer. I was living with someone who didn't respect me. Not as a man, not as a husband, not even as a human being with feelings. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Not until the next morning, when she defended him again, this time to my face. And I said just one sentence that shifted the ground beneath both our feet. But that comes next. I didn't sleep. That much was obvious from the bags under my eyes and the way my shirt clung to me with that dampness you get after a night of just existing too hard. You ever feel like your soul is trying to punch its way out of your body just so it doesn't have to deal with you anymore? That's where I was. I didn't confront her right away. Not about the Slack messages. Not about how she threw me under the bus for a laugh. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I kept hearing her words over and over again. It's just a vase. He always gets over it. And that last one, it didn't just hurt. It humiliated me. So I did something weird. I made breakfast. Pancakes. Burned the first two. On purpose, I think. Gave her the better ones. I don't even know why. She came down the stairs already dressed for work, heels clacking, coffee already half finished in her travel mug. She barely looked at me. You didn't have to make anything, she muttered, slipping her phone into her bag. I said nothing. She sat down, finally noticing the pancakes, but didn't say thank you. Just stabbed one with a fork like it had insulted her. Then I finally asked, do you think you'd laugh if I broke something that belonged to you? She rolled her eyes. Not even subtly. Oh my God, Clay. Are we still on this? I already told you, it was an accident. Eli didn't mean to. I'm not talking about Eli. I interrupted her. My voice was calm. Too calm, maybe. I'm talking about you. She blinked. I continued. You didn't flinch. You didn't even pretend to care. And then you joked about me in your group chat like I'm some sensitive idiot you have to babysit. Her face went pale. Wait, you read my messages? Nope, I said. I walked past your laptop. It was open. Eli said I looked like I was going to cry. You laughed. Said I'd get over it. That's not a private conversation. That's you forgetting I exist in my own house. She didn't speak. I could see her thinking, calculating, probably trying to decide if denying it was still an option. That's when I said it. The one sentence. The one that landed harder than any yelling ever could. I'm not mad that you defended him, Rachel. I'm mad that, in that moment, you chose his dignity over my grief. And just like that, something shifted. She didn't breathe for a second. Her fork hovered above the plate like she forgot how to use her hands. I watched her expression fold in on itself. Confusion, guilt, maybe even shame. But I wasn't done. I added, and the worst part? You probably don't even see what's wrong with that. She stood up, walked away from the food, the coffee me. I thought she was going to slam the door. Instead, she grabbed her purse and turned around. I'll be late, she said softly. We'll talk about this tonight. And then she left. That night, she didn't come home. No call, no message, no explanation. And when I checked her location history on our shared calendar app, yeah, I know, borderline creepy, but don't pretend you wouldn't. She wasn't at the office. She was at his apartment. Eli's. That vase? It really wasn't the most fragile thing in the house. The next morning, she walked through the door like nothing happened. Hair still perfectly straightened. A different outfit than the one she left in. No shame. No apology. Just a low-effort hey, like she'd stepped out for groceries, not vanished for an entire night while her husband lay awake with a broken heart and an unblinking ceiling fan. I didn't respond. Didn't ask where she was. I just sat at the kitchen table drinking cold coffee and pretending not to notice that she hadn't even changed her lock screen from the picture of us at my cousin's wedding. The one where I thought we looked like the strongest couple in the room. She said, I slept at Lindsay's. We had too much wine. My face didn't move, but my pulse did. She said it too fast, too casually, like she'd practiced it. Lindsay, her coworker, lived 40 minutes in the opposite direction of Eli. The calendar app, the one she forgot was still synced, had her parked near South Commerce, which is exactly where Eli's loft was. I had checked it 3 times just to be sure. Even Google Street viewed the building like a paranoid teenager stalking a crush. I knew the brick. I knew the windows. I knew she was lying. And she knew I knew, but we danced around it anyway. You left your breakfast, I said flatly. That's all I could muster. She blinked, thrown off by the response. Sorry, I wasn't hungry. I nodded. So, Lindsay? Yes. Which Lindsay? She paused. Too long. Lindsay from HR. She's vegan. You ordered pepperoni pizza at 11:42 p.m. Her face drained of color. She reached for her phone, probably to check if she'd left a trail, but it was too late. I already had everything I needed. I stood up slowly, walked past her. No yelling, no guilt tripping. I just whispered, Your phone glitched. Eli didn't. And then I left. Not the house. Not yet. Just that room. I needed space. I needed air. She didn't follow me. Didn't cry. Didn't explain. She knew I had her. But here's the thing. That wasn't even the worst part. That came 2 hours later, when a message popped up on my laptop while I was in the garage. It was synced to our family cloud, the one she forgot auto-downloads photos. A preview. A mistake. Eli, shirtless, in her apartment, holding my coffee mug, the one that says, "World's okayest husband." His caption? "The king has fallen. Long live the court jester." She had sent that to someone. Not me. I don't even know who. But I do know this. That was the moment something inside me clicked. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a campaign. And I'd been the only one who didn't know we were at war. I didn't speak to her for 2 days. Not a word. Not a glance. We moved around each other like two strangers trapped in a hotel room with one key card and different checkout times. She kept trying to act like everything was normal, asking if I wanted coffee, texting me passive little questions like, "Do we need more eggs?" Or, "Can you water the ficus?" The kind of communication you'd expect between coworkers, not a married couple. I didn't answer any of it. I couldn't, because I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was humiliated. She hadn't just cheated on me emotionally, and who knows what else at that point. She laughed at me while doing it. To a man she brought into our home. She let him break something precious and made a joke about me mourning it. That's not a crack in a relationship. That's character assassination. The moment I saw Eli with my mug, that stupid, corny Father's Day gag she once gave me when we were still pretending to love each other, something shifted. I realized I'd become a placeholder in my own life. The man who paid the bills, did the chores, handled the car inspections and trash schedules, while she played some fantasy where she was still 29 and single and desired by men who used 3-in-1 shampoo and wore bracelets. And I was done playing the part of the understanding, selfless husband who always gets over it. That was her phrase, wasn't it? I started with the small things. Subtle. Surgical. I removed myself from the shared calendar, logged out her access to my iCloud, transferred our internet and utilities to a new email address she didn't know existed, swapped my banking password. I didn't announce anything. I didn't yell or throw plates or write some emotional manifesto on the bathroom mirror and shaving cream. I just started pulling the thread, quietly, one stitch at a time. That night, she cooked dinner. Her version of an apology, linguine with shrimp. One of the only meals we used to eat together in silence without resenting each other. She poured wine into 2 glasses and called for me from the kitchen like we were in a sitcom. "Dinner's ready." I didn't move. She came to the door. "Clay?" I was in the office, or what she still called the man cave, even though I hadn't touched the Xbox in a year. I looked up and simply asked, "Did he enjoy the coffee?" Her smile froze like a glitching video frame. "What?" I turned the laptop screen toward her. There he was. Eli, shirtless, holding the mug, smirking into her camera like the world owed him a trophy. She said nothing. Not a word. I stood and walked right past her. Downstairs, I picked up the mug. The real one. Washed it slowly, deliberately, while she stood at the top of the stairs watching like a ghost in her own body. I dried the mug, looked at her, and for the first time in this entire marriage, I saw panic in her eyes. Real panic. Not the kind you fake when you're caught, but the kind you feel when someone you underestimated suddenly stops playing the part you assigned them. "You think I didn't know?" I asked. "Rachel, I watched you hand me a fork with the same fingers that texted 'He'll get over it.' I read your tone louder than your words." She took a step down. It wasn't what it looked like." "Then you're lucky," I said, "because what it looked like was unforgivable. But what it really is, that might be worse." She opened her mouth, probably to throw some script at me, a monologue she rehearsed in the car, maybe. But she never got to say it. Because that's when the doorbell rang. One ring. Long, sharp. Like it had intention. And the moment she opened it, her past walked in, carrying something that would blow the whole thing wide open. Rachel didn't move at first. She stood there at the bottom of the stairs, frozen, staring at the door like it was rigged with explosives. And maybe it was, not the kind that blow up walls, but the kind that tear through reputations, one memory at a time. The second ring came, this time shorter, sharper, like a warning. I didn't say anything. I just leaned against the kitchen counter and watched her. Observed the way her breath caught in her throat, The way her hand hovered in the air like she was deciding whether to grab the door handle or run for the back of the house. Then she called out, not to me, but to the door. Who is it? A voice answered. Male. Calm. Direct. It's Ryan. From legal. Her spine stiffened. I didn't recognize the name, but she did. The second she heard it, her shoulders dropped and her face did that thing it does when she's trying to look composed, but is about 30 seconds from shattering. I stepped closer, intentionally louder than I needed to be. I wanted her to know I was still there, still watching, still the man she thought she could quietly phase out of the picture. She opened the door, and there he was, mid-30s, clean suit, sharp jawline, briefcase in one hand, tablet in the other. He looked like every HR training video's idea of a trustworthy corporate guy, except he wasn't here for training, and he wasn't smiling. He stepped in and looked at her first, then at me. Clay, is it? I nodded. Good. I want to be clear that you're legally entitled to hear what I'm about to say, as it pertains to you both. Rachel tried to interrupt. Ryan, this is a misunderstanding, I told. But he held up one finger, and she shut up instantly. That's when I knew this wasn't just some awkward workplace conversation. This was big. He turned to me. There's an ongoing internal investigation involving inappropriate communications between your wife and a direct report at her firm. That person is under review for multiple violations of company conduct. And unfortunately, Rachel's name has come up in connection with 3 incidents, including misuse of work devices, messaging during confidential client meetings, and... He paused. Rachel looked like she was about to be sick. I just tilted my head. And he sighed. And forwarding sensitive project material to an unsecured device traced to a personal contact. A device registered under the name Eli Carter. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just personal. It was professional. She didn't just betray me in our home. She put her entire career on the line to impress some smug man who sends shirtless selfies with coffee mugs. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Ryan turned back to Rachel. You were asked to self-report last week. You didn't. So this is a formal notification. You're on unpaid leave until the ethics board concludes its review. She was trembling now. You can't do this, she whispered. He gave a tight nod. We already have. And then he handed her a printed envelope. She didn't even open it, just held it like a dead bird in her hands. As Ryan left, he turned to me and added something I didn't expect. Just so you're aware, you're listed on her emergency contact forms. You might want to remove yourself. And then the door closed. Rachel stood there for several seconds, completely still. No tears, no words, just a pale, stunned silence. I walked up slowly, leaned in, and whispered one sentence. The same kind of sentence she once used to bury me beneath her laughter. Looks like Eli broke more than the vase. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. And for the first time since this all began, I saw it, the crumbling. Not anger, not shame, just the beginning of the free fall. Rachel didn't speak for the rest of the day. She didn't cook, didn't clean, didn't even open the envelope Ryan had handed her. She just sat at the kitchen table like a statue someone forgot to finish sculpting. Meanwhile, I went about my evening like nothing happened, poured myself a drink, answered some emails, took out the trash. She barely looked up, but I noticed everything. How her hands kept clenching and unclenching around the armrest. How she kept glancing at her phone but didn't touch it. And how, every few minutes, she turned her head toward me like she was waiting for me to explode. I didn't. That was the worst part for her, I think. Not the silence itself, but the fact that it no longer felt like a threat. It felt permanent. Around midnight, I walked past her one last time on my way to bed. I paused just behind her, not close enough to touch, but close enough to speak softly. You didn't lose your job, Rachel. You gave it away. She didn't turn around. Upstairs, I opened the browser tab I hadn't dared click on until now. The hidden album she forgot was shared on the cloud. The one with 6 photos. The first 3 were just selfies. Her and Eli, in bars, restaurants, late-night Ubers. His hand always somewhere it didn't belong. Her smiling like a teenager. But the 4th one, that was the one that stopped me cold. It wasn't just them. It was them in our bedroom. Our pillows. My hoodie on the floor. My grandfather's old alarm clock in the background. Him. Her. Wrapped up in each other like I never existed. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. I took a screenshot. I saved it twice. Once on a flash drive. Once to an encrypted backup. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. My cousin Anthony. The one we never invited to Thanksgiving because Rachel thought he was too intense. You know the type. Shaved head, blunt tone, always in some kind of litigation trench war. He picked up on the second ring. Clay. Hey man. Quick question. Do prenups expire? There was a pause. Is this about Rachel? I didn't answer directly. I just need to know if an ethics violation, digital evidence, and possible infidelity with a coworker is enough to leverage out of alimony. He whistled. Wow. All right. I'll need documentation. You'll have it in 20 minutes. Then I'll call you tomorrow. I hung up. The next morning, I made breakfast again. Not for her. For me. Eggs. Black coffee. The quiet kind of meal that only someone who's emotionally done can enjoy. She came downstairs around 8, hair unbrushed, eyes puffy, finally holding that envelope from work. She hadn't opened it yet. I didn't even look at her. She asked, in a voice barely above a whisper, "What happens now?" I answered without turning around. Now? Now you get to find out who you are without anyone covering for you. She blinked, confused. What does that mean? It means the man you laughed at, the one you pushed to the edge, the one you used to keep the lights on while you played pretend with Eli. He's gone. And the man sitting at this table? He's not your rescue plan. She went pale. She tried to argue, to backpedal, to say she didn't mean for things to get this far, that she never planned anything, that Eli was a mistake, a fantasy, a reaction to feeling neglected. I looked her in the eye for the first time in days. Don't blame me for what you rehearsed. Then I stood up, grabbed my plate, and walked into the living room. She stayed in the kitchen, holding that envelope like it was still the most dangerous thing in the house. It wasn't, because 5 hours later, Eli showed up at her job. And this time, he was the one caught on camera. The day she moved out, she left the keys in a bowl by the door like we were just roommates parting ways after a lease ended. No letter, no final plea, just silence. She took her clothes, her books, a few personal items, and for some reason, the toaster. I let her. I sat on the couch, the same couch I once cried on when her text with Eli first surfaced, and watched dust float in the morning light. The place already felt bigger without her presence. Not lighter, not yet, but wider. Like air could finally move again. The fallout happened fast after Eli's little stunt at her office. Apparently, he barged into her building, loudly blaming her for throwing him under the bus. Claimed she had promised to cover for him. She denied it, but it didn't matter. HR already had the photos, the Slack logs, the project data that had been forwarded from her phone. She didn't just lose her job. She was blacklisted from 3 of the top agencies in the city within a week. Word gets around. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't post about it. Didn't rage online. I just kept showing up to work. Paid my bills. Saw my lawyer. Moved on. One small, stubborn step at a time. Anthony came through. We filed for divorce under a voluntary separation with cause, which meant no alimony. Clean break. The judge reviewed the evidence in chambers. Rachel never even showed up to court. Signed remotely. Didn't contest a thing. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt still, for the first time in years. But the positive turn didn't really begin until I cleaned out the closet. You'd be surprised how much dead weight lives in corners. Old coats that don't fit. Boxes you promised to go through 3 apartments ago. A pile of photos you keep telling yourself you'll want someday. Spoiler, you won't. In the back, behind a broken lamp and a tangle of unused cords, I found my mom's letters. Ones I thought I'd lost after she passed. She had this habit of writing little notes and hiding them in weird places, under coffee mugs, inside books, once even inside a pair of socks I hadn't worn in years. This one was tucked in an envelope marked, "For when you feel like you've lost everything." It was 2 paragraphs. Sloppy cursive. The last line read, "Sometimes the best version of yourself is the one you become after someone stops seeing your worth. So let them go, and build something better in their absence." I cried. Not ugly sobbing. Not chest-pounding grief. Just tears. Quiet ones. The kind that come when pain meets peace and finally decides to surrender. That night, I sat alone on the back patio with a beer and a hoodie. The sky was clear. The city buzzed faintly in the distance. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about what she did or what he took or what I lost. I was thinking about what came next. It wasn't about dating, or revenge, or some sudden, miraculous success. It was smaller than that. Simpler. I signed up for therapy. I got a new gym membership. I finally started playing the old guitar that sat untouched for 5 years. And on Sundays, I volunteer at a local shelter, mostly just walking dogs and cleaning kennels. Nothing glamorous, but it helps. A few weeks ago, I bumped into Lindsay, the real Lindsay, the vegan coworker Rachel lied about. She asked how I was doing, and for the first time, I didn't fake my answer. I told her the truth. Better. Not great, but better. She smiled and nodded like that was the best thing anyone could say. We got coffee. Once. Then again. Nothing romantic yet. Just honest, slow conversations. The kind where no one's pretending. And now? Now I wake up without checking someone else's mood before I check my own. I make coffee the way I like it. I fill the fridge with food that doesn't trigger memories. I breathe. I'm not whole, but I'm free. And that's enough for now.